Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth with Eden and Kim, shifting you into higher consciousness, the show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, special interviews with inspiring guests, intuitive readings, channeled messages from beyond, including celebrities, hot topics to expand your awareness, and time for questions from the audience. Tune in for unprecedented truth, authenticity, on-purpose discussions, and magical moments.
From the Imperfectly Perfect Campaign. Hi, Glenn.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you guys all know we talk about, we love being part of the team of that campaign. I just want to give a shout out before we forget to imperfectlyperfect.org because they have really awesome masks now, right, Glenn?
Yeah. We do. We just dropped them. So we've got eight designs out there. So keep safe and spread the message around mental health at the same time.
Yes. Awesome. So
Yeah,
the other guest, I'm going to read his bio, and I know there's more to this bio, so he can add to it, but I wanted to do a plug for his book right here, Happiness from the Inside Out. I bought his book so you can see it, and I'm going to read his bio on the back of the book, and then he can add to whatever else he's done since then. So Robert Mack has been many things in his life, including a corporate consultant, a professional model, an actor, and a life coach. After several years working as a consultant and executive coach for Deloitte and Touche, he returned to school to earn a master's degree in applied positive psychology, I think since a doctorate. He has appeared in numerous television commercials and magazines, The Today Show, The CBS Early Show, MTV's Fashionably Loud. This life coach from the Miami Life Center, Rob offers seminars and workshops and works with private clients, making them have happier, healthier, wealthier lives. He lives in Miami Beach, which I think now he lives in LA. Welcome, Rob, and you can tell us you've done a few more things since then, so you can fill us in.
Thanks so much for having me. That was amazing, and boy, I forgot that bio was even on the back of that book.
Yeah, I thought, I wanted to give your book a plug because it's so awesome.
I love you guys so much. Yeah, the thing that I think I'm most excited about having done since then is just be a part of the Perfectly Perfect campaign. Honestly, so deeply grateful, and I think that's how we all know each other is through Glenn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Glenn, can you talk a little bit about how you know Rob?
Yeah, well, what can I say? I freaking love this guy. I mean, the first day that I met him, I was fortunate enough to be asked on one of his TV shows, Ever Talk TV. In walks this guy full of what I thought confidence. I mean, look at him, good-looking guy, pearly white teeth, great sounding looking, and after the show, he came up and he said, "This is amazing what I do, and it's something, an extension of what I do, but what you do means the world to me." And that's how we hit it off. And that brings us to, I've known him about a year now. We talk all the time, introduced him to you guys, just telling you all the amazing things about him. And I sincerely cannot say enough good things about this guy.
Well, keep going, Glenn. Keep going. It's fun. Go on in, brother. I'm good. I'm open to receive today.
I'm not checking mail.
And Glenn is zooming over to us from Sydney, Australia. And Rob, you're in LA right now. Are you in LA?
I am in LA. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in Orange County. Eden's in Lake Passaic, which is considered LA. So
Yeah.
we're all locals. And then Glenn was recently in LA. I guess now it hasn't been that recent. It feels kind of recent, right, Glenn?
Yeah, December now. December.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, it's almost a year since we got to meet you in person, and I think that's when you met Rob in person,
Yeah.
when you had that visit here.
I can't believe I've known this guy only for a year because it feels like I've known him so much longer than that. Right?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Right.
My whole life.
Right. It's crazy. It's sometimes I think it's like, Glenn, Eden, and I talk with a lot, like really often. And so even though we've known him, I think maybe a little over a year now, it feels like it's been like 10 because we talk so often.
Yeah. And I'll never forget when we reached out to him and he responded, and we were so excited. Yeah. We were like, well, because we thought you were this, big,
Guru.
yeah. And
I love the way she told that story because she's like, "We thought you were."
We thought you were, but
And then we met him. And then he's changed.
he's actually on our level now. And
Which everyone should see. There's no higher. But anyway,
Yeah.
so we really felt like right now, it's November 2020, and it'll be November 16th, I think, or something like that when this episode. No, November 9th when this episode comes out, and so I feel like right then, especially in a few weeks from now, it's going to be essential and crucial for people to add more happiness and harmony into their lives. And I know that you talked a lot when I saw you at the last workshop, Rob, about intentional happiness, like finding the things that bring you pleasure and being intentional about that. And so before we go into more of the interview, I just wanted to share all of us, like, how are you during COVID adding intentional happiness to your life? And Rob, you too. And with me, I feel like I'm really big on that. Like, I feel like it is crucial for me to have exciting and happy things to look forward to and to be doing. So me and my family, we go to drive-in concerts, and we still have been planning trips that are safe, like that we can go on, that, we can be safe, and planning workouts and planning going, hiking with the kids, things like that is so important to feel normal still and to feel like you're adding in joy in your life. So what about you, Eden?
I think what I'm finding is something I never did before was we're doing a lot of remodeling in the house and getting outdoor furniture and just doing what we can afford to do. But it is making us feel like our home is more happy. We're just happier here because we're doing things that we've been putting off, but now we have more time to do it. And yeah, that's just making it just like feel more livable. And like now that we're going to have outdoor furniture, we have another space to hang out in, because in LA you can't really go out and do much. So we're just making our home just that much brighter and exciting.
That's a great idea,
yeah.
Because even for someone right now listening who can't do that or can't afford it, literally just moving things around your home will shift the energy and just help you feel brighter and make things a little happier for you. So it really does. It makes a huge difference because that's your sanctuary.
Yep.
What about you, Glenn?
Yeah.
See, my heart breaks for you guys sometimes because here in Sydney, Australia, we're not on lockdown. So we do get to go out a little bit, but we've made a promise that every weekend, me and my wife alternatively find somewhere on Google in Australia because we can't leave the country. And we do family mini vacations on a Saturday or Sunday, and we find a new place to go. And other than that, to keep my happiness, it's so funny for all your listeners out there, I actually check in with you guys. And you guys are happy. So, this coach, like, I feel like I've known you guys, like you said, for 10 years. Rob, I do the same. And it's just imperative to keep connected with those amazing people in your life as well to keep happy.
And I think in addition, we're all of us, and I'm Rob, maybe you're doing this too, but I think I'm finding that I'm doing a lot more inner work than before because I have more time, more space to do that, and I'm taking advantage of that. And profound things are happening, new insights every day, and then talking to you guys and sharing those things with you. It's nice to have that to talk to you guys about.
We have like an ongoing daily mastermind that just happens naturally.
Yes.
So, what about you, Rob?
Me, lots of drinking, lots of drugs, generally every day. I'm really such a great question, and for me, it's mostly about staying out of my head. I'd say that's my happiness practice ever. Which essentially I think of that as spending time with the divine. So for me, every moment is honestly an invitation just to not get lost in my own thoughts and my own worries and concerns. I found that to be like consistently enjoyable experience. So it's that, and I think it's also, to a large extent, it's books. I love reading so much. So I'm a little weird. I'm a nerd down deep inside. And then finally exercise. I know Glenn and I share that a lot. We talk about exercise, and we are always leaving each other voice memos in the middle of an exercise or after an exercise or right before one. So yeah, I did. Those are my probably top three.
Those are huge. I mean, thoughts can really, I have OCD with thoughts, so I've really had to manage and train my mind the same thing. And so I think for people out there, this episode is going to help a lot with that, because we're going to get into that, because thoughts can really make or break how your day goes and how you feel, and it's huge. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, in fact, I'd almost argue that it's the only thing that will make and break your day, really. It's like you can even interpret the worst of experience in a positive way and still have a pretty good day. And you can also have the worst thoughts about the best thing ever and then end up having a pretty bad day. So you're right.
Oh my gosh. There's so much to talk about. Okay, I'm going to ask this question now. We have, you are the happiness guru, I think. You weren't always happy though, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Right.
So how did you grow up, and what were some of the challenges that you encountered to get from there to here?
Yeah. I was the unhappiest kid I ever could imagine being. I mean, I was unhappy at like 5 or 6 years of age, and it got worse over time. And I always thought I would just grow out of it, that I would get, good grades, and I'd do well athletically and academically and socially, and I'd eventually have a girlfriend and everything would just go away. But it just got worse and worse over the years. So I eventually became extraordinarily depressed and started experiencing suicidal ideation. So I was thinking about killing myself, all day, every day. It's the only thing I really thought about seriously. And I eventually got to a place where I did some research, because I thought, felt very deeply like that was the only solution. And then I had the strangest experience, because I had decided I was going to like slash my wrist. And, when I dug the knife in, I just experienced this like peace I had never experienced before. It was definitely not what I was expecting. And so in that moment I had decided, look, I'll put off the suicide thing for an hour. And now I look back and think an hour, but an hour at that point in time was an extraordinarily ambitious goal. So I put it off for an hour, did a little research, discovered I was not alone. There's an increasingly common phenomenon, this experience of like having a pretty good objective life. Conditions, circumstances were pretty good. I had family, had friends, and I was killing it financially or anything like that, but I had enough to live on, and yet I was deeply, deeply dysphoric and depressed on the inside. So over a period of time, I just started doing more and more research, and it seemed like it was probably like 2 or 3 steps forward and then 10 steps backward for years. But I just kept tracking what was working in terms of happiness, and that journal of happiness habits and practices eventually became happiness from the inside out. But it didn't, none of that happened overnight. It was like very long, scenic path.
So if I can just add there, when it's
science, and then I'll to provide context, and then I'll sort of answer it more directly. Like, most of us think that money will lead to increasing happiness, and that's partly true. That if you're making less than, in the States, $75,000 a year, so if you can't pay your basic necessities and bills, more money will mean more life satisfaction. It's a little different than happiness, but that's the idea. But once you get to about 75,000, you start to experience what we call the diminishing marginal utility of the dollar. Big word for essentially you get less happiness for each additional buck, right? So at that point, happiness is not very tightly correlated with money. Something like health, most of us think, well, certainly most of us are happier when we're healthy, but actually they find there's no direct correlation between health, objective health, and happiness. There is between subjective health and happiness. So how happiness you perceive, or how healthy you perceive yourself to be, is correlated with happiness, but objective health is not. So there are some folks that might be terminally ill that are just as happy, if not much happier, than folks who are in perfect health, right? And so, kids, for instance, most of us think, well, I always want kids, and if I could just have that first kid or second kid, but we've actually find that no, first kid, you experience a dip in your happiness. Second kid, that dip in happiness is statistically significant, so it goes further, and then your happiness levels don't return to their baseline level until those kids leave the house. Right? So lots of data that basically says, if you can imagine your perfect life, so imagine everything, infinite money, whatever, infinite partners if you're, or the perfect partner, perfect body, perfect life, all of that added up together only accounts for 10% of your overall happiness score. 10%. So that means that what most of us spend our entire lives trying to achieve, accomplish, or acquire is only for 10% happiness, 10% more happiness. So it's really not a good recipe. So all that being said, I guess the bottom line is when you find happiness within, everything and everybody in the world seems to enhance that happiness. When you don't find happiness within, nothing in the world can give it, right? So yes, I always say go for the cake first, happiness on the inside, and then everything is icing on the cake. That's the way I approach it, at least.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject with a question that's not on our list, but this reminds me of something. And sorry, Glenn, I'm interrupting. but I think this is important because it makes me think about a lot of people that I know who they try so hard to have good things happen to them, and then they just keep having what they look at is like kind of from a victim standpoint, that nothing good is ever going to happen to me, and they try to buy a house and then it falls through, and they lose their job, and they're just not maintaining any sort of happiness. And how does your formula, your theory, how can that change for people?
So
what can we say to them?
Were you describing my life the first 20-some years?
Oh my God.
Right? I mean, absolutely. I think most of us assume no pain, no gain, and that if we put more effort in and we can torture ourselves enough, we'll eventually be more successful, make more money, attract the right love or whatever. And generally that doesn't work very well. Most of us know that. You can achieve things that way. But I definitely believe in like manifestation through relaxation, right? There's a lazier, smarter approach to getting anything and everything you want. And it comes through what I call happiness, which is just another word for relaxing deeply on the inside while you do whatever you do on the outside. For me, a huge part of that is also, of course, without question, like a transfer of responsibility, which is I have a deep trust and faith in life itself. Sometimes I call it God or source or, universal intelligence. But the idea essentially is that I don't for a second believe that I am ever smart enough, good looking enough, or hardworking enough to make everything in my life perfect. And I don't think that I need to or want to. Instead, I have found that just by simply enjoying more of my moments, by being deeply present, or what I call practicing the presence, which is just basically spending my time inside with God or source, I find that things happen out of thin air. And my mom will always joke to me, because the second that I ever in my life I've gotten stressed, like this isn't happening, and I don't have any clients, or why isn't this TV show thing taking off, or these books, what's going on with these books? She always says, honey, every time we have this conversation, I always say, go for a walk, go to the pool, go meet up with friends, forget about all that stuff. And then randomly, for no good reason, you get a phone call from either someone you've never met before or the person that you never expected to connect the dots for you. And then they offer you this opportunity that you couldn't have scripted or planned or prepared for, even if you were all knowing, and she's always right. So
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good reminder. It's a good reminder for all of us, I think.
Yeah. What, Glenn?
So Eden kind of touched on my question there, Rob. If a general census across the board, when it comes to that happiness formula, and everyone's so individualized and everyone's mindset works very different, what would you say from your experience and everything is, or what people can take away with their own mindset towards that baseline of a happiness formula?
Yeah, it's a great point. So the other 90% of that formula is genetics. So we're all born with a genetic predisposition, which is not like eye color or hair color. Hair color you can change. It's not like height or eye color, right? So eye color, height, pretty much fixed, set in stone. Happiness, genetic set point, totally malleable. It's plastic, it's changeable. So by doing the other things I'm going to mention here, you can begin to change your happiness genetic set point and be a lot happier in a sustainable way. The other 40%, so that's 50%, is the genetic predisposition. The other 40% is voluntary activities, right? So those are things like gratitude or counting your blessings. It's like, having social support. It's like, exercise and all these things. So the way I sort of keep it simple for people, I say there are happiness activities or happy activities you can just make a list of those things that with very little time, energy, effort, make you feel happy to be alive. And do what you can to spend more time doing those things, right? The other thing is simply thinking happy thoughts. So that's really about telling a better feeling story about everything and everybody in your life, starting with yourself, just for the joy of it alone, right? So you're telling a better feeling story based in truth about everything and everybody, and you're doing it consistently enough until it becomes a habit. It only takes about 21 to 66 days if you're consistent. And then, which is my favorite part, is practicing not thinking at all. So I think I spent the first 20 years or so after I had this suicidal experience, like really working very hard at happiness. And I think it's a necessary step by lining my life up in ways so that I was doing more happiness producing things, and I was doing more work that was happier, and I was spending more time with happy people, which is another part of it. And I was thinking in increasingly more optimistic, happier, grateful ways. That was all extraordinarily helpful. But still underneath that was like this undercurrent of like stress and anxiety and still wanting everything to be perfect. And so one day I just sort of came to a recognition, a realization that the reason I didn't kill myself that one day was because my mind was real quiet. And so I read more and more teachers, and I basically discovered that if you can learn simply to quiet your mind while you go about your day more consistently, you'll find that things line up for you with less time, energy, and effort. You enjoy everything so much more. You're a much more effective, efficient, and efficacious thinker and worker. So more time learning to love your aloneness, love yourself, and learn how to be happy without anybody or anything else feeding it, right? And so if you can learn to do that, not only can you discover happiness, but and peace and self-love, okay? And then when you got into the world and you participate in some business, go to work, relationship, friendship, whatever, you're not entering into those spaces or places in order to get, you're just entering into them to give. And it's such an empowering place to be when you're not interested any longer in just taking from the world, from other businesses, from other people. That doesn't mean there's not an exchange of services or goods or talents or any of that, but it's no longer an exclusively transactional experience where you always give with strings attached and you're always trying to get more and more from the world. You kind of come to this discovery that you are the source, and that source is infinite.
For more information on Eden, go to edensustin.com. For more information on Kim, go to kimlifecoach.com. Make sure to follow them on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Talk Purpose and Truth Podcast. If you loved this episode, you'll love every episode. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thank you for listening.